There's a sculpture sitting in a bonded warehouse a few minutes from the runway at the Geneva airport. It has been in the same wooden crate for over a decade. In that time, it has changed hands several times, sold from one billionaire to the next for a little more each round, and as far as anyone can tell, it has never once been taken out of the box. Nobody has looked at it, no public ever saw it, and here's the strange part. That isn't the system failing. For the people who own it, that is the system working exactly as designed. I know how that sounds. So let me earn it, because this is a channel about arithmetic, not outrage. Here's the claim I'm going to prove to you. For the very wealthy, a great work of art is not really a painting or a sculpture at all. It's a container, a box. And the whole game, the auctions, the appraisals, the free ports near the airports, the private museums with the marble lobbies and the founder's name carved over the door, the whole game comes down to one question. Which box do you keep the art in? Because the tax code looks at the exact same object and treats it completely differently depending on the box it's sitting in. Same sculpture, different box, different tax bill. Sometimes the difference is a rounding error. Sometimes it's millions of dollars. That's the one idea I want you to hold for the next few minutes. Not the art, the box. I'm going to keep coming back to it, and by the end you'll be able to run the numbers yourself and see exactly why, to a certain kind of buyer, a masterpiece is worth more sealed in a crate than hanging on a wall. But first, let me be honest about what this video is not, because I don't want you walking away with the wrong idea. This is not a video that tells you museums are a scam. They aren't. Walk into the Met, or the Art Institute, or the Frick, and you are standing in front of Rembrandts and Vermeers that you and I would never in 100 lifetimes get to see up close, otherwise paintings a family gave to the public permanently for free. Glenstone out in Maryland is one of the most beautiful museums in the country, and it doesn't charge a dime. Most art donations are exactly what they look like, someone who loved a thing giving it to the rest of us, and the deduction that rewards them for it is, arguably, good policy. It funds culture without a single tax dollar being appropriated by Congress. Praise where it's due, I mean that. So this isn't a story about villains, it's a story about a machine, a legal one, and about the small number of people who understand the machine well enough to run it. And before I show you how it actually runs, I have to take away the fake version, because you've probably heard it. The fake version goes like this. A billionaire buys some unknown painting cheap. He finds a friendly appraiser to swear it's secretly a masterpiece worth 100 times more. He donates it, writes off that giant made-up number, and the government hands him a fortune in tax savings on a value that was never real. Free money painted onto a canvas. Let me be straight with you. That is not a loophole. That is tax fraud, and the IRS built an entire machine specifically to catch it. Anytime you claim a single artwork is worth $50,000 or more, and you donate it, your appraisal gets referred to a unit called Art Appraisal Services, which leans on a standing panel of around 25 art experts, dealers, curators, scholars who value the work independently, and they are not gentle. In a typical year, that panel adjusts the majority of the donation appraisals it reviews, and it adjusts them downward. Read that again, slowly. Most of the time, they decide you claimed too much. And if the number you claim turns out to be wildly inflated, twice the real value or more, that's what the code calls a gross valuation misstatement, and it carries a 40% penalty on the tax you underpaid. For donated art, there isn't even a good faith escape hatch. The appraiser who signed off gets penalized too. So that story about the friendly appraiser and the 100 times markup, that's not the play, that's the audit. Okay, now that the fake version is out of the way, let me show you the real one. It's legal, it's checkable, and honestly, it's more interesting. Start in the box you already live in. Call it the living room box. You buy something, a sculpture, say for $50,000. You bought it with money you already paid income tax to earn. Years go by. The artist who was nobody becomes somebody. Blue chip. And that $50,000 sculpture is now genuinely, defensibly worth $3 million not on a fake appraisal, but on real comparable sales at auction. Congratulations. On paper, you've made a fortune. Now what happens if you sell it? Here's where most people get surprised. Art doesn't get the friendly long-term capital gains rate that stocks get. It's a collectible. Long-term gains on collectibles are taxed up to 28%, and then the net investment income tax stacks another 3.8 on top. Call it 32%, give or take. Your gain is about $2.95 million. So selling hands the government roughly $940,000, and you walk away with a little over $2 million in cash. Nothing wrong with that. That's the box you and I are in. You made money, you paid your tax, you kept the rest. Now watch what happens when you move the exact same sculpture into a different box. Box number 2, the museum box. You don't sell the sculpture. You donate it to a qualifying institution that will actually display it part matters, and I'll come back to it. Two things happen at once. First, you never sell, so that $940,000 in capital gains tax, it simply never comes due. Gone. Second, you get to deduct the full fair market value of what you gave the whole $3 million against your income. At the top federal rate of 37%, a $3 million deduction knocks about $1.1 million off your tax bill. More once you add state tax, depending on where you live. Now, let me be honest about the catch, because this is a math channel, not a hype channel, and this is exactly the number the fake version hides from you. You did not just get $1.1 million in free cash. You gave away a $3 million object. It's gone. If you had simply sold it, you'd have over $2 million in the bank. Donate instead, and in pure cash terms, you are worse off. A deduction is not a rebate check. It lowers what you owe. It does not pay you. Anybody who tells you a donation turns $50,000 into $4 million in cash is selling you something, and it isn't the truth. So why would anyone do it? Because of one more move, and this is the real engine. Who says the museum has to be someone else's? You can be the institution. You set up your collection as a private operating foundation, a real functioning museum that you found and, in practice, run. Now, stack the boxes. You deduct the full $3 to million fair market value, just like before. You skip the capital gains tax, just like before. But the sculpture doesn't leave your life. It hangs on a wall you control, curated the way you want, in a building that might be a short drive from your house. From then on, the cost of insuring it, storing it, conserving it, all of that becomes the foundation's tax-exempt expense instead of your after-tax hobby. And when you die, that $3 million object is no longer sitting in your taxable estate waiting to get hit with estate tax. It's already inside the institution. Now run the one number on it. If you were never going to sell, if you wanted to keep this thing and keep it in the family, the tax code doesn't just let you. It pays you, roughly $1 million in change, to keep what you were keeping anyway, and it quietly covers the running costs from then on. Sit with that for a second. That's the magic. Not free money. Something subtler, and frankly better engineered than free money. Getting reimbursed to hold onto your own asset, and lifting it out of your estate on the way. Let me put the three boxes side by side, because seeing them next to each other is the whole point. Sell it. You keep about $2.1 million in cash, you hand over $940,000 in tax, and the art is gone. Donate it to someone else's museum, the art is gone too, but you skip that capital gains tax and you cut your income tax by about $1.1 million, and you get the warm glow and the plaque. Donate it into your own operating foundation. You skip the capital gains tax, you cut your income tax by that same $1.1 million, the running costs come off your plate, and the art is still functionally yours. Same object, same $3 million, three completely different outcomes. The only variable that changed was the box. And now the honest catch again, because the government isn't blind to this. A private operating foundation has to genuinely operate. There are income and asset tests it has to pass. It's supposed to actually run a museum, actually serve the public, and you are not allowed to self-deal. You can't hang the art in your bedroom and call it a gallery. Whether these foundations really serve the public is exactly the fight that reached Washington. Because in 2015, the Senate Finance Committee started asking that question out loud. Its chairman sent letters to 11 private museums, names you might recognize, the Broad in Los Angeles, the Rubel Collection in Miami, the Brandt Foundation in Connecticut, and others, and asked a simple thing: who actually gets to come in? The answers were revealing. Some of these institutions were open to the public only a sliver of the week, in one case as few as around 20 hours. Some required visitors to book a reservation weeks, even months ahead. Founders were personally running the operations. Some museum buildings sat right next to the donor's own home. The committee's conclusion was careful, and I'll be careful with it too. None of that was necessarily illegal, but it raised the obvious question of whether the public was getting enough back for the very large tax benefits flowing to the founders. And here's the honest ending to that story. After all the letters and all the headlines, no meaningful rule change followed. The machine got examined and the machine kept running. Which brings me to the third box, the one where the art doesn't even pretend to be seen. Remember that crate in Geneva? Free ports are bonded warehouses, many of them near airports, in Geneva, Luxembourg, Singapore, and increasingly Delaware, where goods are treated as if they're in transit, never formally entering the country. And if the art never officially enters, then the import duties and the sales and value-added taxes that would normally trigger on a purchase simply don't. Art can be bought and sold inside that warehouse, passed from one owner to the next, without ever leaving the crate and without any of those taxes coming due. And here's the part the headlines get wrong. The owner doesn't even have to sell to get cash out of it. You can borrow against a painting sitting in a free port, take a loan using the art as collateral, and a loan isn't a sale, so there's no gain to tax. You get the money, you keep the asset, you defer the reckoning. It's not forgiveness exactly, it's deferral. But deferral that lasts 20 years starts to look an awful lot like forgiveness. The free port is the waiting room. The sculpture sits there appreciating, trading, invisible, until one day an owner is ready for the last move, and the art travels from the Freeport box to the museum box, and the deduction finally gets claimed. The waiting room, and then the exit. Let me ground all of this, because I don't want you thinking these numbers are theoretical. There's a Rauschenberg piece called Canyon, a wild assemblage with a real stuffed bald eagle mounted on it. When the owner died, her appraisers valued it at $0. Not low, zero. Their logic was actually airtight. It is a federal crime to sell an object containing a bald eagle, so on the open market it cannot legally be sold at all, and a thing you cannot sell is worth nothing. The IRS disagreed, hard. It valued the piece in the tens of millions, reportedly around $65 million, and came after the estate for tax and penalties on a work the family said they couldn't legally sell for a penny. It's the cleanest proof I know that the valuation panel is real, that it bites, and that a number on an appraisal is an argument, not a fact. That fight was ultimately resolved by donating the work to the Museum of Modern Art. The box, again, deciding everything. And I want to be clear-eyed about the limits of this whole thing, because the future doesn't cooperate with anyone. The entire play depends on the art actually appreciating on your $50,000 unknown becoming a genuine $3 million name. And nobody, not the dealers, not the appraisers, not me, can tell you in advance which unknown artist becomes blue chip and which stays unknown forever. That part you cannot fake and you cannot force. Most cheap art by obscure artists stays cheap art by obscure artists. The tax machinery only matters if the appreciation shows up first, and the appreciation is the one thing no one can promise you. So let me be straight with you about something else. This one probably isn't for you, not today. If you don't already own significantly appreciated art, and you don't have the kind of income where a 7-figure deduction changes your life, none of these boxes are available to you, and no video is going to change that. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. What this is for you is a lens. The next time you read that a collector generously donated a masterpiece worth tens of millions, you'll understand there's real generosity there and a beautifully engineered tax event at the same time, and that both can be true at once. And the next time someone tells you the trick is just to overvalue something and write it off, you'll know that's the version that ends in a 40% penalty, not a payday. Because here's where I land, calmly, in between the two loud options. One crowd wants to tell you the whole thing is a fraud, and every museum is a billionaire's tax dodge. That's wrong, and it's lazy, and it insults every family that ever gave the public a painting for nothing. The other crowd wants to tell you it's all pure philanthropy and you're a cynic for asking questions. That's wrong too. The truth is quieter and more demanding than either. It is usually legal. It is often genuinely generous. And it is, at the very same time, one of the most elegant tax instruments the wealthy have, where the object barely matters and the container is everything. Read the fine print. Run your own numbers. And remember the one line that holds this whole thing together: the masterpiece was never the asset, the box was. If running the numbers before you believe the story is how you like to think about money, subscribe. That's the entire point of this channel. We do the math, so you never have to take anyone's word for it, mine included. I'll see you in the next one.